Okay, I got into this and I got into cybersecurity because obviously because of the money. And for me, it's I was at a point in my career where I finished my master's. I didn't do my master's in cybersecurity. I did my master's in marketing analytics. Did over 100 interviews, and I was not able to land a job. I felt like I felt very down by the point that why am I not able to land a job? And a friend introduced me and talked to me about this, mentioned to me that, hey, I think this is something that you can do. And he was very specific on what he wants me to go and learn. Because cybersecurity is very broad. There are so many domains under cybersecurity. I'm going to talk about that as we get into it. And as we were doing it, as I was thinking through that, I decided, okay, let me go for it. Now, I decided to learn it on my own. I tried as much as possible the resources. But because it was very broad, I was not able to have a certain guide or a certain channel to go to. So what I decided to do, or what I asked him, and he told me that he cannot teach me because to him, he found his way to enter through certain means. But what he can do is that he can be able to direct me or ask around for people for me who will be interested, who can help me. He asked a question. So I got a friend who was actually doing it. Then I decided to join that class, just like normal cybersecurity bootcamp class. I joined the class. Actually, I joined the class the second week and was running for about 11 weeks. Um, God being faithful with me, I think about our 6th week, I was ready to do interviews. Started interviewing, and my first interview, I got a job. I got a job with a hospital, and I was doing something we call third-party vendor risk analysis, which I'll talk to you a little bit about get into when we get into it. And that is how I got in. And since then, I have not given up. If you ask me of my secret in getting in, I'll tell you that it was one, obviously, it's just the grace of God, but I don't know how it happened. Secondly, I didn't take the material that I was learning lightly. I was literally spending a lot of time. When I say a lot of time, I I'm one of those people that I set a goal and I just want to achieve it, and that's it. Anything that I have to do to make sure that I achieve it. I don't want to achieve it just the achieving sake, but I want to do it with excellence. So I was always going out, all out for it. I did it for averagely, I was learning about 4 to 6 hours every day, Monday to Friday. My weekends I don't, because my weekends are time that I also want to relax. So weekends I did it for almost 4 to 6 hours every day. And I was doing a full-time job. I was working 8 hours, doing other things, church work, other things, but still, I still make time for it. That's what I said, I didn't know how I did it, but I was able to make time for it. Once I'm learning, I'm doing it, I'm waking up early in the morning just to make sure I'm getting about 2 to 3 hours. And for me, as soon as I started putting in that work, I got to love it. First, I started to do 2 to 3 hours. The very moment that I got to love it, now it became easier for me because now I started going on and on. Then I started to write certifications, learn to get some of these certifications to back the thing that I have. Then I continued to do it for a while. Then afterwards, I started to change jobs because now I realize that any job that decides to offer me a better salary, I go for it. Then I started changing jobs. Then I realized, okay, then it's time to be stable and also start to pour out to people and start to also help people get into this. So the drive of helping people get into this started from there because I realized that there was no easier channel for people. And I saw how I struggled before I was able to get even somebody to help me to get into it. And that is how I got into it. But enough of me. So I want to talk about cybersecurity. Now, when we talk about cybersecurity, or information security, they are two different things. Now, when we talk about cybersecurity, what we are referring to is we are talking about how to keep electronic data, how to protect data that is digital data or data that's found on the internet. And so, whereas information security has to do with, we are talking about even paper or documents or buildings or the people that are involved. So the difference between the two is that information security deals with everything when it comes to the papers, when it comes to the documents, the files, the people, the technology, all those things. Whereas cybersecurity deals with only the data that is, or the information that is electronic. So cybersecurity is a subset of information security. Cybersecurity is a subset of information. So when someone says, I'm going to do cybersecurity, it's very focused. But when you say information security, it's very broad. And all what we are doing is that we are trying to protect information. So think about it this way. When we say cyber, cyber literally means internet. Remember those days you say you're going to the cyber cafe or the internet cafe. That is what cyber is. Whereas information has to do with, when we are talking about information, any kind of information. And we all know what security is, protection. So when we talk about cybersecurity, we are saying that it is protecting of electronic data. Whether the data is being stored, processed, transported, any means that the data is going through, we are following the data throughout to make sure it's being protected. Similar with information security. But this time around, information security deals with everything else. Now, why do we focus on cybersecurity, or we talk about cybersecurity? Now, we mentioned, and some companies use these terms interchangeably. It's not one way thing where one company talks about it in a different. No, some companies call information security cybersecurity. Some companies, but during interviews, there are times where they are going to ask you what is the difference between it, especially when you meet someone who is very learned in the field. They will try to be able to quiz you to find out, okay, so can you tell us the difference between the two? And that's where this explanation comes in. But cybersecurity on its own, when you are defining it, you define it as a body of technology, processes, practices designed to be able to protect what we call a network, a device, a program, or data from any attack. Now, let me break it down for you. Now, when we talk about technologies, we are talking about softwares. You pick up your phone, you realize that there are certain software that is on. Now you have an iOS, which keeps running all the time. The iOS that is running is a technology. The softwares that are on your phone, your apps, all those things are the ones that we refer to as technology, because we realize that there's something that helps us or facilitates the things that we are doing. Processes. When we talk about processes, we are talking about standards or procedures that we are able to do certain things. Practices, things that we have been doing that it has become a norm for us. So we are saying that cybersecurity is all these three which have been put together to help us to protect what a network. When we say a network, we are literally referring to, currently, I'm sure that many of us are joining with our phones. But you see, in your house, you have a phone, or let me use myself as an example. I have a laptop that is in front of me that I'm watching you from. I have a monitor screen that is here. I have a MacBook that is here. I have a phone. I have a modem. I have, what else? I have a TV. When all these individual devices come together as one, that is what we call a network. These individually can be referred to as a system or devices. But when it comes together as one, that is what is referred to as a network. Now, when we talk about this, so what we are saying is that cybersecurity refers to these technologies, processes, and practices that we have put together to be able to protect our network, protect our devices, protect our programs or software that are on our that we are using. What are we protecting them from? Threats, or from being damaged or unauthorized access. Now, let me give you a typical example. Now, when you think about your phone, you see your phone is a device. Now, you are protecting your phone from unauthorized people accessing your phone. Because you are doing that, how are you doing that? That is why you have a passcode on your phone. So if that person doesn't have access to my code, there's no way that the person can open up. So this has become a technology, but it's a practice that we have put in place that we have a password that because there is a password, nobody can access your phone unless they type in the password or they do the facial recognition. Any questions, please? Please feel free to ask questions. I'm trying to be able to break it down in such a way that it will make everyone will have a better understanding of it. I'm not going to go through all the slides because not all of them are if I'm not teaching a class, if I'm teaching, I would have done that. Now, cybersecurity, as we talk about, has okay, that's why I can see. Let me do it this way. Can you see my screen? Can you see the slides, please?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Now, cybersecurity, as we talk about, has so many domains. So many domains, and this is even a few of them. And so if you are trying to get into it, the path that you can take, they are a lot. And I always tell people that for me, you don't limit yourself to only one way, or you don't try to also learn everything. Why? Because you will always be confused. You will not understand. So if you want to get into, what I did was that I looked up for the easiest route. When I use the easiest route and get in there, the remaining ones, as soon as I get in and I realize that, oh, I have interest here, I'll be able to do it. But now I need a job. I need to switch to cyber. I want to be able to make sure that I'm being called a cybersecurity professional. So I'm doing my best to get into it. At the very moment that I get in, the rest, it will take care of itself. And as soon as you find yourself in one company, you can just now keep shadowing other people and be able to learn on the job. And majority of the time, as soon as you get in, it's easier for the job to help you to switch to other departments that you want to grow in. Because every job is for the growth of their employees. Now, there are so many domains, and I'm not going to go through the domains, but the part that I figured is easier that I can teach you for you to be able to get into within 3 months is the GRC aspect, the governance, risk, and compliance. Why? Because it's all about documentations. It's the easiest route. I kid you not. It's the easiest route. If anybody tells you that they are going to teach you technical things or something about cybersecurity, and they are telling you about, let's say, security operations center, and they are telling you about physical security, security architecture, cryptography, and they are telling you they are going to teach you in 3 months, I can bet you that is a lie. I can't do that. Unless maybe you are putting in 8 hours, even that will be difficult because there are so many tools involved. There's coding involved, there's things that they have to do. But when it comes to the GRC aspect, there's no coding. There's nothing technical. All you have to know is you have to know your regulations. You have to know the processes that we go through. So we call something, so under GRC, we call it the governance risk compliance. What is governance? Governance are the people that are making the top decisions in every company. Those are the ones setting the policies, setting up the procedures, the mission, the goals. How do we align the business goals with the risks that is involved? All those things come from the governance team. And those are majority of the time the CISOs. We call them the chief information officers, the CEOs, the board of directors. Those are the ones that comes up with all those and make those calls for us. Then we have risk management. Now, the risk management has to do with the part of the organization that tries to eliminate every risk that is involved within our environment. What do? They are the one that is developing the risk register. They are the ones that are managing the risks. Now, there are people that are actually dealing with the actual risk. The risk itself, we are not the people that deal with it. Because you see, what is a risk? A risk is a potential or probability that a threat or anything that can harm, or any event or anything that can harm an environment or can harm a system takes advantage of weaknesses within our environment to harm our system. The risk has not happened. It is a probability or a potential. When something is a probability or a potential, I mean that there's a likelihood that it will happen. That a vulnerability, when it comes to cybersecurity things, we say that a vulnerability, that what is the likelihood that a vulnerability can take advantage, a threat can take advantage of a vulnerability to harm an asset. And so when it comes to this, and when we are talking about risks, the risk management team are the people that make sure that we have policies in place that are able to address all these risks. But the actual people who deal with the risks are the engineers, the security engineers, the network engineers. We are not them. But for us, we are the people that are able to tell them that, hey, per the regulations, we need to do it this way. We need to be able to implement this. We need to be able to do this. We need to be able to do that. And the very moment that we are doing that, that is the job that we are doing. So majority of the time, when you see people in GRC, when you ask them what they do on a day-to-day, then they start laughing because they tell you that it's very difficult to explain. Why? Because majority of the time, they are relaxing. Same with compliance. Now, what is compliance? When we're talking about compliance, we're talking about adhering to rules and regulations. I'm sure everywhere that we work or we have encountered who are not terrorists. Same with cybersecurity. We have IT auditors. What do? They come with a checklist. They want to make sure that you said you have this in your environment. The regulation is telling us that we need to be able to do this. Do you have that? This, then you go through that list. Then they collect all those information. And that is what compliance is. So when we're talking about the GRC aspect of cybersecurity, we are talking about the governance risk compliance aspect. And these are the three main things. So what all these three has to do or have in common is that they are all need documentation. They are all helping set up policies. They are all helping to make sure that we are adhering to regulations. And there's a difference between adhering to regulations and making sure you're addressing risk. The fact that you're adhering to regulations doesn't mean that your system is safe. Because there are things that the regulations will tell you to do. But remember that the regulation is for everyone within a country or global. But this time around, you are focusing on your system. So there could be things that you can put in place to be able to address those things. And those are things that the more you develop in the field, you start learning those things. You start learning those things. Now let's move forward. Now, under data governance, we talked about what a policy is. Policies are the high-level statement that comes from the board that applies to everybody in the organization. What are the standards? The standards are the measures that we want to be able to comply by, or we want to be able to make sure we are conforming to the policy. So what are the various standards that we need to put in place to make sure we are conforming to the policy? Procedures. Procedures are the step-to-step guidance that we need to be able to achieve the policy. So the policy have told us what to do. But the procedures is what is going to be able to describe to us that, okay, what is the process that we have to go through to be able to attain what we're going to do? Who does what? When do they have to do it? What do they have to do it? How do they have to do it? And what are guidelines? They are just general statements or recommendations that has been given to us that helps us to be able to make sure that we are abiding by the policy that has been given to us. Now, risk management. When we talk about risk management, and I'm running up very shortly so that we can, I'm hoping that we don't go more than that. Risk management. So when we talk about what the risk is, that the potential that a threat will take advantage of a vulnerability to harm our system. And there are two types of risks. We talk about inherent risk and residual risk. What is inherent risk? Inherent risk is just risk before you put in measures to guard yourself. And residual risks are the risks after you are putting measures to guard yourself. Typical example that I can give you, think about road signs. The reason why we have road signs is to be able to help us to make sure that we are addressing risks that is involved in our environment. But the fact that there are road signs doesn't mean that accidents still doesn't happen. Even though there are road signs, accidents still happen. Why? Because the road signs are there to help us to be able to mitigate or to reduce the risk, which we don't have enough time. I would have talked about the various risk decisions. But those are the road signs. So now when we are talking about residual risks, we are talking about the risk that is involved before the road signs came. And after the road signs, the risk that is involved is the residual risk. Inherent is the risk before the road signs, and the residual is the risk after the road signs. So what we are doing in an organization is that we are trying to put in measures to make sure that we are reducing the risk that the companies are involved. Risk is very difficult for you to totally take out. So we want to put in measures to be able to reduce it. And we have various risk decisions. And now what are we protecting? We are told ourselves that we are protecting data. What kind of data are we protecting? Now, when we talk about data, there are 3 different kinds of data that I want us to talk about. I want us to talk about data in transit, data at rest, and data in use. When we talk about data in transit, what is data in transit? You are sending an email out. When I send it from my end, it goes somewhere else. The transit, the procedure that it goes through before it reaches the person that is supposed to, that is where we talk about the data is in transit. The data at rest is a data that is being stored or being kept. The data you use is the data that we are using currently. So you can see that currently I've opened my PowerPoint that I'm using to do the presentation. It's a data that is in use. I have files on my computer. I'm not using them. I've not opened them. They are at rest. The very moment that I'm trying to put something in a group or I'm trying to send a message, that is data in transit. And all these 3 kinds of data, we want to be able to protect them. But for us to do and protect them easily, that is where compliance comes in. That is where regulations comes in. So there are so many different kinds of compliance. So many different. Now, compliance itself, it just literally means that we are following rules and regulations. And we are making sure that the requirements that has been set for us has been met. And these requirements are always laws. That is the reason why they pay a lot in this field, because they are laws. And when you break any law, you have committed a crime. When you break a law, you have committed a crime. So what do? You make sure that you are abiding by the laws and regulations. So for us to be able to abide by the law and regulation, when they come up with these laws, what they do is that they tax an organization, and an organization develops something we call a framework. What is a framework? A framework are structured guidelines that has been put together to help us to be able to attain or achieve certain laws. Like GDPR. Because it has been put together to help to make sure that the privacy of our information is being protected. Many people don't know, but our informations are very, very valuable. Very, very valuable. Why? Because you see, when you think about it this way, when your information are out there, a terrorist can even pick up your name, then create a new identity for somebody and give that person your name. So you are somewhere and they are doing other things in your name with your information. And those are some of the things that these things help us for. Now, there's a lot of frameworks. If we decide to talk about frameworks, we can talk about frameworks forever. Actually, this week, that's most of the things that I've been posting about on my social media. Now, when we talk about frameworks, we are federal, we are HITRUST, PCI DSS. PCI DSS is called Payment Card Industry Data Security System. everyone who uses a debit card, every company that uses a debit card or a credit card, they need to make sure that they are abiding by this regulation called PCI DSS. So how does it work? See that as soon as you swipe your card, your information is not supposed to be stored on the device. The very moment that you see that there's going to be a pending transaction on your account, the money doesn't come out right away. It's going to be pending. At the end of the day, they take everything, they call them the clearinghouse, every transaction to the clearinghouse. Then their clearinghouse will now start distributing to all the branches. That's how majority of these things goes on overnight. You see that by the time you wake up, there's that deduction. All these transactions go to the clearinghouse before, and there's a process and there are regulations that they also have to abide by. And that's what we call PCI DSS. That's why every organization, they are doing a certain form of cybersecurity, or they are doing a certain form of this GRC that we are talking about. And every company have different names for different roles that are involved. So when somebody asks me, okay, so what role should I apply for? Should I look for? I always tell them, no, it's not about the job title. It's about the job description. You have to read the job description to know that, oh, is this something that I learned in the class? Or is this something that I have learned? If you have learned it, then you can go for it. But when you're looking for job titles, some of the job titles that during my research I came up with, it's a lot. These are all job titles, and I can send this to you guys afterwards. These are all job titles that you can apply to after we have gone through with the class. I added a PDF file to it, so I'm going to open that PDF and also talk to you about it. But these are all titles that are under the governance risk and compliance. There's more. So I always thought you have about 10 to 15 job titles to apply to after you are done. But your key thing that you want to do first is one, you want to make sure that you are learning. Because if you don't know the material, you don't even know the job title to apply to. If you don't know the material, you don't even know the job title to apply to. Now, the bootcamp that is coming up, I'm giving you a gist about compliance. Please, any questions on the compliance, governance risk compliance, and first before I go into, we have a few minutes so I can go into this PDF and give you a rundown of the program, then we can run it. Okay, so the program that I'm looking at running is supposed to run for 4 weeks. We are going to meet every Saturday. We're going to meet for 3 hours. It's going to be similar time like this because some of us, we are in the US, so it's a little bit early for us. It's actually 7 a.m. my time. And it's going to be 3 hours for a section. The reason why I make it 3 hours, for majority of the time, my class runs for 6 weeks. And we are supposed to be like 12 times. And it's 2 hours per section. But if you are meeting 3 hours, I'm sure that we'll be able to cover the material. I encourage my students to put in about 10 to 20 hours a week to learn. And I encourage at least when you are starting, just do 2 hours every day. Don't wait for the class days to be able to, or a day before the class, let me revise it. No, it's not going to happen that way. Think about it. You're trying to get into something somebody used about 4 years with about 3 years of work experience. So you need to put in work to be able to master the material. If you're able to master the material, it becomes easier for you. But if you're not able to, that's when you struggle. Now, people keep asking me, is this class geared towards a certification? Yes, it gives you the basis for some certification, but it's not the only material that you need to pass the certification. The class is geared towards more helping you with interview preps, helping you with what to do when you get on the job, rather than certification. And you see, when it comes to certification, it is just a booster for your resume. The certification doesn't guarantee you a job. It makes us feel good and feel accomplished. But as to whether that is what is getting you the job, no. You still have to go to an interview. You still have to convince them why you deserve to be. They'll pick someone who doesn't have a certification, but have 5 or 7 years experience over you who has a certification on any day. Even if you are the one doing the hiring, somebody comes to you and tells you that, hey, I have a PhD, I have this certifications, I have this. And somebody comes to you and come and tell you that, hey, the job you are looking for someone, I have 3 years experience that I can do this job. Between the two of them, who are you going to hire? Does that make sense? Okay. So we focus more on prepping you to be for the job market rather than the certifications. But there are material that we also going to provide for you in case of any certification, any guidance that you need. We are there. And I encourage CISM. I personally encourage Security Plus and CISM. I encourage those two because Security Plus gives you the foundation that you need in cybersecurity. Helps you with the technologies. It's a little bit of the technical things. CISM gives you the understanding of how to operate as a manager. Because these roles that we are talking about, I can tell you, majority of them are not entry level. There's nothing like entry level. When you are looking for entry level roles, they are different. They are not talking about entry level. So someone who is getting into this field, majority of the time is converting from somewhere else or was transferred from somewhere else. So, and it's almost everybody who is in this field. We don't teach this from school, that I'm going to school just to learn JRC and become a... No, never. It's either you are doing project management, it's either you are doing some technical stuff, security, networking, cloud, then you'll be able to gradually you're going to transfer, switch careers and come and do this. So there's nothing like entry-level position. So that is why I encourage CISM, because when it comes to the CISM, it talks about your managerial skills. It tests your managerial skills, gives you that guidance that you need. Whereas CISA, which many people do, is very specific with the auditor. So if you are trying to be an auditor or you want to be an auditor, I would say that focus on CISA. And that's also one of some of the things that we'll be talking about in the class. Now, when it comes to class, we'll do the basic concept of cybersecurity, like I did some of them. We talked about risk management. Then we'll talk about third-party risk management. What is third-party risk management? See, every organization you find yourself in do business with other companies. Now, per regulations, they cannot do business with any other company without them going through a certain process for them to make sure that the company they are doing business with is secured and is safe and they have a right cybersecurity posture before they do business with. Why? Imagine that I decide that I want to do a hospital decides to do a business with me. They run a background check and do all these things, and they realize that my system is not secured enough. Hackers can hack the hospital through me. Why? Because I have access to the hospital system. So now all our health records will be out there. Everything concerning us will be out there. Why? Because not the hospital might find themselves secured. The hospital might find themselves secured, but not their third party. So this is a whole department, and there's a lot of roles also within that field, which you can look up after the session. Third-party vendor risk or vendor risk management. So there's a lot, and we are going to talk about that also. We are also going to talk about various frameworks, how the frameworks work. How do we go about talking about this in an interview? That okay, if I have experience in this framework, how do I come across in an interview as somebody who have that experience? I'm going to first teach us about the frameworks. Then afterwards, we'll be able to do that. We're going to take ISO, PCI, GDPR, and NIST. Then we're going to talk about the risk management framework. I bring this up because I want to be able to give you an overview of how some of the frameworks have been implemented. When you have this in an interview, you can use that template as your experience that you have. When they ask you, yes, I've helped a company to be able to implement this. This time around, you're not going to say you learned it in a bootcamp, but this is what you have done. So I am using my experience that I've gained at work to be able to come to you, help you to be able to talk about like someone who have done this before. Then we have interview sessions. Now we have interview preps, how to apply for jobs. We help with the CVs. We help answer recruiter questions. How do you answer recruiter questions? When somebody had a student that's interested, I was there one afternoon. She kept calling. She called me the first time I was in a meeting and I couldn't pick up. So I texted her. She says no. So I thought it was an emergency. Then I called her back. Then when she was talking, she started shivering. Oh, say like she was. I thought something had even happened to the child. She says, no. A recruiter just called me, and and she's really shivering. Like she's shivering on the phone that she can't even express herself to me. And I started laughing. And she had actually built her profile a day before. So as soon as you build your profiles, recruiters are also out there looking for people. So they are always going to poach you and send you emails. So she responded yes, and the recruiter called. And as soon as the recruiter called, this person is sharing, she can't even talk on the phone because we had not done the interview prep. So she doesn't know what to tell the recruiter or how to go about it. But we do all those things, help to prep you on how to answer recruiter calls, how to conduct yourself in an interview. In an interview is not when you are going to teach them, but you are going to present you as somebody who have done it before. So your answers are very short, but very precise and concise. And I'm going to teach you how to go about that. I'm going to send you some of the interviews I have done, so you can also listen to some of the interviews. I always keep on interviewing because I give it to my students so that my students can know how to go about it, and it helps me to know the industry trend. How do you present yourself on your first day at work? First day at work, they're going to ask you, can you introduce yourself? Or we have a new team member, can you tell us your background? And you realize that because of some of the things you have said on your resume, now you are struggling on how to approach yourself, but we'll be able to talk about all those things in an interview. Now, we have a platform, forthit.com. Now, when we are starting a class, that is where what we are going to be using. You have access to the class material 24/7. As much, every class will be recorded like this. We'll have it on the website. If you have time, you keep going over the videos as much. And I always tell people, do it. 10, 20, 30 hours a week. Put in the work. The results will show forth. Whatever you eat, that is what comes out. So what we are seeing of everyone or your body is as a result of the things that we are putting in our body. Yeah, that is what comes out. So we make sure that you have access to our LMS, that's our learning management system platform. We also are available. We use Teams and WhatsApp to do the communications. And there's also a self-study where if you don't want a live class, there's a self-study mode also that we do, where we have live lectures. We have office hours also that is also open. Now we have career services. There are different services. Someone who says, oh, I'm already in IT. I want to switch. Can we have a one-on-one so that we can do this? Now we have different packages for everyone. This is not the price that we charge anyone, our US. This is way discounted. Our US class goes for $3,000. My current class, which I started last week, we were running that one. We were running a promotion. So that actually went for $2,000 for the whole package. But over here, we have it for £700. Then we have our silver package, which talks about only the class. You do only the class and nothing else. Then we have our bronze package, which talks about people who have already done the class or done something and you do one-on-one, help them with CVs and do one-on-one career guidance. That also is £200. And those are the services that we run. The class is supposed to start first week in March, if I remember very well. First week in March, we had about 30 people who already showed interest. But I mean, the information section, I'm thinking maybe we might have one more information section by the end of the month. But depending on my schedule, if I have time, but if not, and we have the number of people who have signed up already, we will not have any information section. And that is all that I have for you today. I'll stop the recording, then I'll start taking questions.